What fighter jets will Canada choose? This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Going beyond the headlines.
Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
It's a dogfight. Sweden wants Canada to buy fighter jets made in Sweden. The Americans want Canada to remain committed to buying the American-made F-35. Pete Hextra is the United States ambassador to Canada. He was at an event in Ottawa last night called the National Manufacturing Conference. And stalled trade talks were front and center, and the ambassador said one of the things the White House wants to know is whether Canada is still committed to buying the F-35 fighter jet.
On the F-35, we've got all kinds of people and companies that are involved, from an economic standpoint and a military cooperation standpoint. The F-35 has been a phenomenal success. It's not an American plane. It's an international plane. We put together a consortium, an American-led consortium, 20 years ago. Canada was one of the first to sign on. We shared technology across borders, so that, I think one of the features that I saw on one of your news networks talked about, a company out of Nova Scotia, and the only thing that they could show you was the box that the parts were shipped in, because it's kind of like, well, no, this is classified information, and it's kind of like, or materials, and it's kind of like, yeah, because it's high tech. Well, that's technology that we shared across the border, that you've got you've got companies in Canada that are learning and developing and probably contributed to the development of that technology that you can use on future products and future efforts.
Ambassador Hextra continued with his sales pitch for the F-35, saying it only makes sense because of military cooperation through things like NORAD.
Because we have a model. We've got NORAD. That has been a very, very successful model. We've got the F-35. We think it's been a very successful model as in relationship to an international plane that brought together a consortium that is now delivering the best technology around the world. And we're working on future generations of planes and those types of things. It's another great example, and I'm assuming we'll develop consortiums again for that kind of technology. It's the same kind of footprint that we think is the most advantageous for protecting the Arctic and those kinds of things. And when we work together, we get the greatest success.
The ambassador's push for the F-35 comes as the King and Queen of Sweden wind down a 3-day visit to Ottawa. Part of that visit is seen as another sales pitch that Canada look away from the F-35 and instead consider the Gripen, a fighter jet built by Saab. At a state dinner at Rideau Hall this week, King Carl XVI Gustaf spoke of the economic ties between Canada and Sweden.
Canada is also Sweden's 40th biggest export market, and around 150 companies are established here. Both our countries are global front runners in innovation and have strong ecosystem in research and technology.
It's not just the King and Queen of Sweden who are here for the sales pitch. Sweden's deputy prime minister was here, so was the country's defense minister. And in recent days, there have been news reports that going with the Saab fighter jet would mean the creation of 10,000 jobs in Canada, leading the industry minister, Melanie, to say she didn't think the F-35 program was creating enough jobs in Canada.
Well, what I've said is I don't believe that we've had enough jobs created and industrial benefits done out of the F-35 contract. I think it's not enough. I think Canadians expect more, and we should get more. So that's my first point. And second, when it comes to the Gripen, of course, we're really interested in seeing what can be done, because there was an unsolicited bid that came up. 10,000 jobs is indeed a very interesting existing offer. So we have to look at what our military capabilities needs, and at the same time, what are the number of jobs created across the country. I know that Canadians want us to build more in Canada, build with Canadian jobs, and that's what I'm pushing for.
But for the American ambassador, the United States and the F-35 is Canada's obvious choice.
Going way back to World War II, going back to NORAD, we've got a model on defense that from the American perspective, we think has worked pretty well. Okay? And so, continue moving down that direction, recognizing that we face a lot more challenges from different parts of the world than we do from each other.
Canada has been part of the U.S. Joint Strike Fighter program since the late 1990s. The F-35 from Lockheed Martin was chosen in 2010 by the Harper government to replace the aging CF-18s. That was all put on hold when the Justin Trudeau Liberals won government 5 years later, but then 7 years after that, that same Trudeau government said it would buy 88 F-35s. There are 16 confirmed orders. Now that whole purchase is under review by the Carney government. And all the while, the Royal Canadian Air Force still relies on the CF-18s, which first entered service in 1982. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
On News Radio.
Alberta issues are all over the national news these days. The UCP government of Premier Danielle Smith is making headlines for a plan to allow more private delivery of health care. She has used the notwithstanding clause of the charter to end a strike by teachers and to prevent legal challenges to bills on gender identity. And there have been reports as well in recent days that her government could be close to a deal with Ottawa that could clear the way for a pipeline, an oil pipeline to the BC coast. What does her main political rival think of all of this? Let's find out. Naheed Nenshi is the leader of the Alberta NDP. Great to hear from you today.
Always happy to be on, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's start with healthcare. Under Premier Smith's plan, surgeons would be allowed to work in both the public and private healthcare systems in Alberta at the same time. That doesn't happen anywhere else in the country. The Premier says it will reduce wait times and more procedures will be performed. What do you think of the idea?
Half-baked, no evidence, and in fact, contradictory evidence from places that have tried it. But the funny thing about it, Rob, is the funny thing about this government as a whole. No consultation, no discussion. The only reason they announced it is because the Globe and Mail leaked it earlier this week, and then they felt that they had to either deny it or announce it. And there's no plan. There's no real plan in there or a real idea of how the whole thing could work. I mean, one of the things that the minister said yesterday is those private surgeries can only happen on the evenings and in the weekends. I mean, what a weird thing to say. And so the whole thing is, to begin with, not thought out, as always with this government. They love to operate at the level of headlines. I call it as though the college Republicans suddenly got power and not at the level of actual implementation. So they say the doctors are going to love it, but the Alberta Medical Association, the doctors, have already come out against it because they haven't been consulted in any way. They have this half-baked idea that the private surgeries will only happen at night, and they've got no idea of how that will actually increase capacity. So the analogy I use is, let's say you're at Canadian Tire getting your winter tires on. Hopefully people have done that already. And there's a huge line for the till. So manager comes by and says, okay, we're opening a second line. Great, except there's only one cashier. And so now that cashier is doing both lines, and the priority line might go a bit quicker for people who are willing to pay more, but the other line will get longer because there's no plan in here for increasing actual capacity of anesthetists or operating room techs. In fact, the operating room techs are going on strike come Saturday, or more physicians, more surgeons. So it sounds amazing, I guess, in theory, if you're Rob Anderson, the Premier's Chief of Staff, who says it's going to transform healthcare in only 3 to 5 years. Premier said she'd fix healthcare in 90 days, by the way. But there's no planning here. There's no real plan here, and it's straight up Americanization of healthcare.
So what do you do then to reduce wait times, but also try and contain the ever-increasing costs of healthcare?
Yeah, these are really important questions, and I can highlight some headlines on this, which is, number one, you have to create an environment that healthcare professionals want to work in. We have so many healthcare professionals leaving the province or coming here for their training and then leaving. And, you know, when you have a government that continually is getting letters from physicians saying how bad it is for physicians here, that's not really an environment that's conducive to bringing in more folks. We also need to manage not just our workflow, but our capacity much better. So, for example, the Royal Alex Hospital in downtown Edmonton has not done a hip or knee surgery in nigh on 2 years now because the government can't come to an agreement with them. Yet, we're spending a bunch of money on these private facilities that have been shown to cost more and not have any impact on actual wait lists. So the answers are not simple. If they were simple and I could give them to you in a radio interview, we'd have implemented them across the country by now. But what we've done is kind of the opposite of what the UCP is doing. I've asked one of my MLAs, Dr. Luann Metz, who is a world-renowned neurologist in her other career, and she has spent about a year talking to experts around the world, to frontline workers, to physicians across Alberta, and is working on crafting a blueprint for what a modernized system could actually look like. It's sort of the opposite of what the UCP is doing, which is make it up as you go along. You know, they've now disaggregated Alberta Health Services into 9 new organizations, each with their own CEO, plus an integration council, which is supposed to make the 9 organizations somehow work together, as they did when they were one organization. And they're just, every week, they almost create a new organization to try and patch up the problems that they've created with their previous changes. It's absolute chaos. And I don't think there's a single Albertan who would say that the healthcare system is better now than it was 6 years ago. So we've got to figure out how we address all these issues. By the way, the Premier blames it all on population growth, and that is part of the problem. But even if Alberta's population had stayed the same, we would still be seeing these problems because we don't have real thoughtful leadership at the top.
Okay, so when we come back, we'll talk about the use of the notwithstanding clause, and are we on the cusp of some kind of deal between your province and the federal Liberals in Ottawa on energy policy? When we return with Naheed Nenshi, the leader of the Alberta NDP, this is News Radio.
You have questions?
Now you know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Naheed Nenshi is the leader of the Alberta NDP. Our special guest today, Premier Smith in Alberta, has now used the notwithstanding clause to end a teacher strike and to prevent court challenges to 3 bills on gender identity. So this has reignited debate once more over the notwithstanding clause. Many premiers, past and present, have viewed the notwithstanding clause as a safeguard that asserts the authority of elected legislatures like yours in Edmonton. Premier Naheed was a strong supporter of the notwithstanding clause. When do you think, Mr. Nenshi, that the notwithstanding clause should be used, and when shouldn't it be used?
Well, I've committed to never using it should I become premier, because I believe that human rights are inalienable, that they're not set by legislatures, and that it's the job of the legislature to figure out how to pass laws that are constitutional. So last night, I did an epic filibuster in only my second or third week in the House. I spoke for 90 minutes on this. I'll try and distill it down because we don't have 90 minutes, Rob. But there's 2 issues here. One is the use of the notwithstanding clause at all, and the other is the way in which this government has chosen to use it. So I quoted extensively from Peter Naheed last night. He gave a really interesting lecture on the 10th anniversary of the Canadian Constitution, specifically about the notwithstanding clause. He was the architect of it. He thought it was very important that it be in the Charter because it was in the Alberta Bill of Rights at the time, and he thought it was an important safety clause. It's important to note he never used it. Indeed, the federal government has never used it. Until recently, most provincial governments had never used it, and the Alberta government has never used it preemptively. So I can talk about using it against teachers, using it on these issues of gender identity. And by the way, they chose to do that on the Trans Day of Remembrance, when we remember trans people who cut short their own lives, who died by suicide. So that the timing is unbelievable here. But really, it doesn't actually matter what you think about teachers or what you think about trans kids. I happen to believe everyone has human rights and you shouldn't be stripping them away. I believe that parents have rights to choose the best medical care for their children, which these laws strip away. But the political piece of this is we have a premier who loves to talk about how she loves freedom. I quoted extensively from her maiden speech in the House when she was first elected, in which she talked about the only reason she was in politics was to preserve people's freedoms. And she's been systematically stripping away people's freedoms since she became the premier, and particularly with the preemptive use of this clause. And what that means is that the clause is meant to be used after a court rules whether something is constitutional or not. And if they say it's unconstitutional, but there is some public emergency, then you should be able to use it. And so Naheed argues the reason he wanted it was because for a long time, the Supreme Court of the United States was denying people their civil rights, particularly around slavery. And he said that's an example of how you might want to actually use it to expand people's rights. And he gave three criteria. He said it should only be used in three places. It should never be used preemptively. It should require a supermajority of the legislature, and it should have significant public debate and legislation that explains why it's being used. And none of those criteria have been met.
All right. We only have about a minute left, so I must get some reaction to these reports that Alberta and Ottawa could be close to some sort of MOU on energy policy that may clear the path for a pipeline to the northern BC coast. How optimistic are you that that's the case? What would you like to see in this MOU?
Well, I had a front row seat to the building of the Trans Mountain expansion as mayor of Calgary, and I know what it takes to get a pipeline built. And certainly, I'm very happy if we get an MOU. I've been lobbying, for example, against the Federal Environmental Impact Assessment Act for some time because I think it's just a bunch of red tape that doesn't actually preserve environmental safety. So if they can get to an MOU that helps clear the path, that's a necessary first step. I'm happy to see it. But we got to roll up our sleeves and get the work done to actually get a pipeline built. And we'll be judged on whether we get the pipeline built, not on whether we get an MOU signed.
Okay. Very good. Nice to hear your voice again. Thank you so much.
Always happy to be on, Rob. Thank you. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Yeah. That's Naheed Nenshi, the leader of the NDP in Alberta. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
It's time for our Thursday Newsday political panel. Melanie Paradis is the president of Texture Communications. Welcome back. Great to hear you today. And Nick McRoberts is back from Hill and Knowlton. How are you, Nick?
I'm good, Rob. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. There's an old line that goes something like this. If you're young and don't vote Liberal, you have no heart. If you're old and don't vote Conservative, you have no brain. I always like that line. These days, it seems younger voters are leaning more conservative. Older Canadians are more in the Liberal camp. Melanie, what happened? How did that happen?
Well, so look, we've seen a lot of polling on this. So this is not just like a flash in the pan thing. We've been seeing this trend for months, if not years. Younger Canadians, especially men, are showing an increasing openness to the Conservative Party under Pierre Poilievre. You can trace this to younger voters' frustration and rising housing costs, stagnant wages, a feeling that the establishment, including the Liberals, has really let them down, and that the Canadian dream, specifically the ability to own a home and have a family, is farther out of reach for them than ever before. And what we're seeing is not simply young people discovering conservatism, it's young people saying the status quo hasn't worked for us and we're ready for someone who says it will change. Meanwhile, we've got older voters, especially boomers. They already own a home. They've built up more wealth. They value stability. They've benefited from decades of asset inflation. Some of them have defined benefits or pensions. These are things that are just completely out of reach for younger Canadians. And so there's a real divide happening between these two generations. There's always been generational cycles in politics, but what's new here is the nature of the grievances. This isn't just a culture. This isn't about culture wars. It's economics, opportunity, realism, and that's what's giving it staying power, in my opinion. But what will be key for me is, are we going to start seeing these young people get more involved in the party and not just be voters on election day?
Okay, interesting. Nick, what do you think is going on? How did this happen?
Yeah, I think to underscore something that Melanie said, and the important part is that this is not a flash in the pan. This is a generational issue where you have, affordability issues, the inability to buy a home, stagnant wages, as Melanie said, right? And so these come in cycles, and naturally voters that are feeling frustrated by those things are going to move towards parties that are calling them out. And it is very easy to complain about an issue or point out an issue, and it's harder to bring fixes to those. And what has beleaguered the Liberal Party, to be candid about it, is an inability to communicate directly to the electorate why their policies are going to fix the problems that they're identifying. And I think that for Mark Carney, that's going to continue to be an issue when you have to talk about nation building and big projects that he likes to talk about, while you still have that younger cohort of voters, myself included, frankly, talking about affordability. And so, the Liberal Party's in a tricky spot right now to communicate that effectively.
Let me ask you, Melanie, on specifically younger voters leaning more conservative. How much of that, I wonder, is leader driven and the personality of Pierre Poilievre? In other words, would the Conservatives be benefiting from this support from this group with another leader, or is it a Poilievre thing?
I do think that the Poilievre does play into this a lot, in part because his tactics for several years now have been to meet people where they are and communicate with them there, specifically on social media. That's been one of his most effective tools for reaching this younger demographic and sharing his story over and over and over again across those platforms, and talking specifically about issues that are important to them. Like, he's always been really good at reading the tea leaves, and knowing what the trending issues are, and figuring out what is it that the people want to hear about, and then talking to them about that. And that's, I think, is what's been really compelling for younger people, because they can hear in what he's saying that he is listening to their issues.
Okay. And what is it then about the Liberal side that is failing to connect there, Nick? What's going on there with younger voters?
I think with the latter half of the Trudeau government, and some may even say the beginning, there was an element of preachiness, right? Of we know best, let us take care of you, and to quote Ronald Reagan, the scariest thing someone can hear is that we're from the government, we're here to help. Where Mark Carney is going to have a challenge, kind of counter to what Melanie said about the leader of the opposition, is that connecting to people. Mark Carney comes from a very different generation than is feeling challenges right now. He comes from a very different tax bracket than is feeling challenges right now. So, there's a little bit of that disconnect. You heard the clerk of the Privy Council recently talk about how we need more senior leaders and the best of Canadians leading from the top down. And that means that those leaders are going to be disconnected from, those blue collar workers, those young families trying to buy a home. So again, it's about how do you communicate those large generational transformative projects into here's what it means for your grocery bill. And that's a challenge.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Melanie. Older voters vote in greater percentages than younger voters. What could the Conservatives do to win more of those older voters back, do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I feel like if I had a real answer to that, if anyone in the party had a real answer to that, we'd be screaming it from the rooftops of the party to go do it. It's challenging.
Might be in government.
Right, exactly, be in government. Look, this is a segment of the population that the Conservatives have been able to rely on for for decades, and it's a difficult moment to feel like they've kind of been lost to the Conservatives. I hope it's just for a moment, and then we'll be able to woo them back. I think part of it is going to be continuing to demonstrate that Mark Carney's promises, that he's failing to deliver on them. Yes, there's a lot of talk, like there's major projects, there's investments that are in motion, but how do you translate that into jobs in the short term? How does that help the older population, help their kids launch out of their basement? And until they actually start seeing that, I think that the shiny finish that's on the Mark Carney government right now is going to start to fade and wear away, and then those voters will come back to the Conservatives.
Okay, we'll be right back. It's our Newsday panel. I'm Rob Snow here with Melanie Paradis and Nick McRoberts. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
With Nick McRoberts from Hill and Knowlton and Melanie Paradis from Texture Communications. It has been suggested, Melanie, that Pierre Poilievre has built a broader voter coalition than previous leaders of the Conservative Party. People will cite his support with younger voters that we talked about. Also, blue-collar union voters, which again leans mostly men, and also new Canadians. If this is the case, though, how stable do you think a voter coalition like that is? Is that something that's built for the long run?
Yes, I think it actually has the opportunity to reshape Canadian federal politics if it holds. The appeal here is clearly Poilievre's messaging on cost of living, housing affordability, challenging the elites and gatekeepers. That's resonating across those cohorts. But a coalition is not just like who shows up at your rallies. It's also who shows up at the voting station and who sticks with you when the spotlight moves on from the election, people who are continuing to volunteer. To make this coalition stable, I think the Conservatives will have to deliver messaging on housing, on cost of living. They have to continue to make clear what it is that they're going to offer that's different from the Liberals. But then there's also this potential for internal tension around this, right? This coalition spans different interests that may not always align on issues like immigration, on social values, on global trade. And so we need to be speaking to each of these segments with a cohesive message that continues to hold them all together and keep them focused on one key thing. And that so far has been affordability.
Okay. What do you think about this voter coalition that Pierre Poilievre has assembled here, Nick? What would you say? Do you think it has staying power?
I think that any coalition, as Melanie said, is tricky to manage. I think it's while in part to do with Pierre, I think it also has to do in significant part to that realignment that Melanie mentioned, with the NDP kind of trailing off, with the Liberals moving more towards the center and taking up a wider grouping. That Venn diagram of political parties in Canada is starting to have a bigger overlap between the Liberals and the Conservatives. And so is it so much people migrating to the Conservative Party as migrating away from others? It's hard to say. But again, I think that stability is all hinging on the internal stability of the Conservative Party. And in recent weeks, I don't know how much of that we've seen. And so maybe more of those fringe voters might be turned off by that and looking for a party that brings stability and unity to the electorate.
I'm wondering if you see other vulnerabilities, though, Nick, perhaps in a resurgent NDP, maybe sometime in 2026 when the party gets a new leader, maybe it can start making inroads again with, say, Labor voters, for example. Where do you see vulnerabilities in this so-called voter coalition that the Conservatives have right now?
So I think that's exactly it. It's how do the other parties move? And we see from the NDP, I look at like a Rob Ashton as a leadership candidate, and while he may not be a favorite, he does appeal to those, or he's trying to appeal to those blue collar, working class voters that may be part of that Conservative coalition we're talking about. So this is as much in the other party's hands to weaken a Conservative voting coalition than it is the Conservative Party to necessarily lose.
Okay, I want to talk about something else. There's quite an account in the Toronto Star today from Riza Patel from the Ottawa Bureau of the Toronto Star about these events that Conservative MP Jamil Jivani is putting on, anti-DEI events, what he calls liberal racism. They serve Bud Light, the woke beer at these events. I'm just fascinated with the Jamil Jivani story. I have said in the past, if the guy was a liberal, they would have made a CBC movie of the night about him. He's had, an extraordinary life. Let's face it. But he's not part of, the shadow cabinet of the Conservative Party. I wonder how you view him. Do you view him, for example, Melanie, as an asset or a liability to the Conservative Party?
So I view all MPs as assets and liabilities at all times. So I will couch my comments in that. But especially ones that are rising in profile, because while there's always benefits to that, there's always risks, right? So Jamil Jivani, because this is a national show, for those who aren't aware, is the MP for Bowmanville, Oshawa North, which is like the very eastern outskirts of what we would consider the Greater Toronto area. His riding's really a boundary between rural and urban, and so it's an interesting place, and it's actually the riding that Aaron O'Toole held previously. He has a fascinating background, youth outreach, identity politics, tough talking conservative messaging, young Black conservative. There's a lot there that could help broaden the party's appeal. But at the same time, his style has raised some eyebrows. But he talks about young men being forgotten, heavy on the liberal elites, that kind of messaging. It definitely resonates, but it can turn some people off. And so there's always two sides to the sword. Yeah.
I'll get you to weigh in on that, Nick, when we come back. I also want to talk about Chrystia Freeland's new gig. What about her gig as an MP? When is that over? We'll be right back. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Here with Nick McRoberts, Melanie, Paradis, talking politics today. In liberal circles, what's the view of Jamil Jivani, Nick?
It's one of those things where you just have to let the opposition kind of go with it. As the government, just ignore the noise and focus on what you have to do. And, we talked a little bit about what could shake up a voter coalition for the Conservative Party. I think members like Jamil Jivani, who are parroting some of the language that we see from the U.S., might be enough for some voters to shy away from that. Those who are, have a propensity to not enjoy what they hear from Donald Trump probably won't like what they're hearing from Jamil Jivani.
Okay, let's talk about Chrystia Freeland has another new job. She will be the CEO of the Rhodes Trust. Think Rhodes Scholarships, Rhodes Scholars, and also Warden of Rhodes House. Gosh, I wish I could be Warden of Rhodes House. That sounds so sweet. Warden of Rhodes. Chrystia Freeland, Warden of Rhodes House. In the meantime, of course, she's been hopscotching around the world as special envoy for the reconstruction of Ukraine. I understand she's passionate about it. I'm not speaking here with any animosity to the former minister at all. But is it not time to say, I'm leaving here? Because all she has said is, I'm not running in the next election. Well, the next election could be in, 2029? Is it not time for her to quit as an MP and have a by-election in University of Rosedale? What do you think, Melanie?
Look, I don't want to be petty about this. So what I'll say is, I think she is trying to leave. I think she's been trying to leave for some time. But that the Liberals have their own timeline and that they're holding her back until they can run all the by-elections at once. I think that they know that there's going to be a couple of others. And rather than this being like a drip, drip, drip of a bunch of different MPs resigning and then having to have by-elections at different times, they're holding them all to do one news cycle about this, where a couple of them will resign all at once, and then they'll run the by-elections at the same time, at a time that is beneficial to the Liberals because they enjoy that privilege as the government, unfortunately.
Okay. What do you think, Nick?
mean, I can't say that I disagree with that. It's savvy politics, and it is the luxury that you're afforded as the government. But I think the writing has been on the wall for a while now for Chrystia Freeland that she's trying to get out. Even if we go back to a year ago at this time. And so, I think as more of these, and apparently there are more roles for her that will be announced. There are writing opportunities that will be announced for her. So I think just as more of these come out, it just puts more and more pressure on her to finally announce. The by-election timing can be a different conversation, but whether or not she, should trigger that by-election process, I think we're at that point.
Okay. Thank you. Great to hear from both of you today. Really enjoyed our conversation. We'll speak again soon. All the best.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, bye-bye. Melanie, Paradis, president of Texture Communications, Nick McRoberts with Hill and Knowlton. I'm Rob Snow. Talkback is coming up next. Elder care. We're going to talk about elder care on Talkback today. With your help, this is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today's topic, taking care of aging parents. Taking care of aging parents. Here's what we want to know. What are some of the challenges people face when they start to take care of their parents as their parents grow older? What are your experiences? What are your experiences with taking care of your parents as they grow older? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. For example, what did you have to learn along the way? What were you unfamiliar with that you needed to learn along the way? For people who aren't doing this right now, but may end up doing this someday, because half of families will do this at one point in their lives in Canada, taking care of an elderly family member. What should they know? What was an eye-opener for you? What advice would you give people? What should people know about things like, gosh, the kind of commitment that this can take, just in terms of time? Because there are only so many hours in the day. How do people balance things like having a job, having a career, having a spouse, having children, having your own life, and taking care of a parent? How do you juggle all of that? What do you think people need to know about the financial side of things? And what's it like trying to have those sorts of conversations with your parents? And what are the costs? Unexpected costs. Costs that maybe caught you by surprise. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. What do people need to know about trying to navigate the healthcare system? That can be a chore. What's it like when you're trying to take care of an elderly loved one and trying to navigate the healthcare system such as it is these days? I mean, there are so many things to consider here. Family dynamics. How do you deal with that? Family dynamics. How do you avoid family conflict over things like this? Legal stuff. How do you deal with all of that if you're not a lawyer and you don't have much familiarity with that kind of thing? And again, I come back to this. What's it like trying to have these conversations with your parents? I mean, it's a big issue. There are many parts to it, and it's not going anywhere. It's just going to get more acute as the years go on. More and more and more Canadian families will have to deal with this. Half of Canadian families will have to deal with this at some point in their lives. That's the estimate. I was looking at some numbers today from Statistics Canada. Statistics Canada has a whole portal about this kind of stuff. There are more than 8 million Canadians right now over the age of 65. Right now, it's 1 in 5 Canadians are over the age of 65, and in 10 years from now, it's going to be 1 in 4. 25% of the country. will be a senior. You compare that to 25 years ago, it was only 13% of the population. Now it's 1 in 5, headed to 1 in 4. And millions of aging parents are being taken care by millions and millions and millions of family members, caregivers, unpaid caregivers. It's almost 8 million as well. 7.8 million Canadians taking care of an elderly parent, and at the same time, they're trying to take care of themselves. What we want to know today is, what is that like? What are some of the challenges? What do you think people should know? What have you had to learn along the way? What help is out there? What help is out there? And just how are we doing as a country? Helping caregivers who are taking care of their parents. What help is out there in the community or in the healthcare system, or from an aid organization or a charity or a faith-based organization or from the government that has been beneficial to you? What's helped? What could you point to and say, you know what, that was really helpful to me? And where are we coming up short on this? Given that this is an issue that is only going to grow over time, what can be done to make it easier for family members or friends to take care of aging loved ones? Please join the discussion. It could be beneficial to someone. 1-833-668-2577. That's our call-in line. If you've never called before, just mention that, and we will make your call a priority. What's it like trying to take care of aging parents? That's our topic on Talkback today. Really hope to hear from you. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know, and this is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Taking care of aging parents, our topic for Talkback today. What are some challenges people commonly face when taking care of aging parents? What help has been available that's been beneficial? And what more can be done to make it easier for family members or friends to take care of an aging loved one? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Let's go to Gary. Is in Halifax. Hi, Gary. Thanks for calling. You're on the air.
Hi, Rob. Hi. I'm glad you picked this topic to talk about, because you can't talk enough about it.
Okay.
I represent a group called the ACE Team Advocates for the Care of the Elderly. I'm the chairperson for this group. We've been in existence for almost 20 years. It started when I was looking after my own aging parents, and I can tell you, Rob, to make a long story short, it can break families up. It's so challenging. You heard the expression, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a whole city to look after aging parents. There's not enough resources out there to do it. Especially if you're a family like where I was, with mid-teen to late-teen kids going through school, trying to get to the end of my own career and look after aging parents. My father had cancer, passed away at 98, and then after that, I looked after my mom, who had dementia. It was a very challenging thing that there wasn't enough home care. There's not enough workers for home care. Anybody that thinks that they can keep their families at home is sadly mistaken, because we've had experience where people that had lots of money that could provide care, had better resources than people that are in lower income. Even they said that. Yeah, they didn't have enough money because they were running out of energy, not the money, but it was challenging because they weren't there. The workers weren't there for 24/7. And here in Nova Scotia, Rob, it's elderly people looking after elderly people. It's an elderly spouse looking after, or a partner looking after an elderly partner. And
Okay.
by the way,
if I could, Gary, if I could. So you have this organization. What do you do there? What does this organization do to help out?
well, because of all the challenges, and we have a very good group of academics and people that have, and these academics, by the way, have had personal experiences with the long-term care system, where there's not enough resources, there's not enough protection for the people in care. There's abuses that have happened, neglect and abuse, and it's still happening. We've gone to the ombudsman to look into the investigation for protection for people in care. They're doing their thing on this as we speak, because even in the nursing homes, there's not enough workers. The number of hours have been increased from 3.1 hours of care to 4.1 hours of care, but you can hardly ever see the difference. There's not enough. Not enough therapies, physiotherapy. The list goes on. The list goes on.
Yeah. Okay.
But for a younger family trying to juggle all of this, I feel for them, because like I said, and by the way, you can have 20 siblings in a family. Only one or two will ever do the work, and then when it comes to the legal battles, like you had mentioned, it just breaks families apart, because there's not enough.
We'll have to wrap up our conversation there, because we do have other callers to get to. But I thank you, and thank you for your organization's advocacy as well. Sounds like important work you're doing, Gary. And maybe we can speak again soon. Thank you. 1-833-668-2577. Taking care of aging parents. Your experiences, the challenges. Robin is up next, calling from Calgary. Hi, Robin.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you just fine, Robin. Thanks for calling.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that last caller. The energy thing is crazy. For the better part of this last year, my father has been in and out of the hospital for basically 8 months now. And at one point, he was actually living with me. So because we thought he was getting better, then ended up back in the hospital. We weren't sure if we were going to lose him or what was going to happen. In the last 3 weeks, we're finally able to get him home, and he wants 24-hour care because he's still sound of mind, which is great. And we are lucky in the sense that he can afford to pay for that. But the energy thing is absolutely 100% correct, because even with that care, my phone is consistently ringing for doctor's appointments or food needs to be delivered or whatever for the house. And I'm a single dad. My son is in hockey, so you can imagine, and I work too, so the schedule is quite tight as it is. And we've also, as what that last caller mentioned, I've had family already abandon us. It's just me doing this, and it's exhausting. And the resources just aren't there. Beyond exhausting. And the resources aren't there, too, because when we found out my father was going to be quote-unquote okay, because he's 86 years old, the release process was so fast, I had to shotgun finding the 24-hour care, making sure his house was set up properly for him, and all that. And I'm trying to play catch up from the last 8 months, and I can't get my head above water. It's been it's consuming more and more of your time. At the same time, you're trying to take care of your own children, and you're working, right? Correct. My gosh. Correct. Yeah, and it's like I said, even though the finances are there, it's like that gentleman said. He couldn't have said it better myself. It takes a village. More help is needed, and I don't know if that needs to come from the government or more people need to be aware of what's going on. But it is absolutely mind-boggling. All right. All the best to you. Trying to raise awareness today and learn a thing or two along the way. Thank you. Taking care of aging parents. 1-833-668-2577. 3-4 lines available there. Would love to hear from you on the topic on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
on taking care of aging parents. Corey in Cambridge today. Hi, Corey. Hi, Corey. Can you hear me?
I can. How are you today?
I'm very good, Corey. Thanks. I'm glad we could connect. Thank you for calling. What's your experience?
So I've been a caregiver for aging parents for the past 30 years, and all the while I've been raising my own family. And I've learned a lot through the process, and I can't stress enough the importance of having the tough conversations with your parents before you need to make the decisions. Have those conversations with the doctor present, talk about things like DNR orders, do not resuscitate, talk about what sorts of care people want for end of life, so that when you're in the middle of the emotional situation, you know what your loved one wants to happen. And by having those conversations in advance, although very, very difficult, it can really help you get through the situation.
What was it like when you had those conversations? How did that come about? Did you start the conversation? Was it your parents? How did that go?
Well, initially when I became a caregiver, it was because my own mother was suffering from caregiver burnout, caring for her own mother, my grandmother. So
right.
We had the discussions as we were working on getting my mother back to health and maintaining the care for my grandmother, that this was only something that could be done as long as it was safe for everybody. And when we mean safe, we mean physically and mentally safe. And that was something where we had the conversation where if we were in a situation with either my mother or my father, that we would do our best to care for everybody in the home. But when it became unsafe or too much, we would have to look outside the home and have alternate care, whether it was brought in or whether it was looking at alternate living arrangements. And having those conversations before, when people are not in the midst of an emotional situation that is very stressful, it allows you to look at things more factually in a more black and white manner, and it does make it easier. It's not easy to have. No one wants to talk about
no, difficult.
No one wants to talk about that role reversal, but it's something we have to do.
Sure. Yeah. Very good advice. I want to ask you, just in the final minute that we have, if you have ever sought out help, what kind of help has been available and beneficial to you, like something like, wow, that was really helpful to me, and where you think we could be more helpful, whether that's the government or the healthcare system or whatever. What could be done to make it easier for families? What do you think? Oh, I guess she's gone. Okay, that's too bad. 1-833-668-2577. We'll stop here and we'll bring you right up to date on the latest breaking news. Our topic today, taking care of aging parents and challenges that people would commonly face when taking care of aging parents. Help that's available. What more could be done to make it easier? Right after the news, more of your calls on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Our topic today, taking care of aging parents. We're asking about some of the challenges people face. What help is available? What more could be done? 1-833-668-2577. Up first here is Natalie, calling from Calgary. Hello, Natalie.
Hi, Rob. Can you hear me?
Hi, Natalie. Yeah, I hear you just fine. Go ahead. What's your experience?
Well, it's an interesting one for me because I was diagnosed with terminal breast cancer in my mid-40s when my kids were 2 and 5.
Oh, my gosh.
I was married, and so it's still part of caretaking, just not necessarily with the elderly, but with someone who was in their mid-40s with 2 kids. Married at the time, my marriage didn't survive it because caretaking is hard, harder than anyone can imagine. I watched my now ex-husband go through it. So I'm now 52. I'm still getting my palliative treatments every 3 weeks. And last week I got a call from my aging parents who now are in their mid-80s. They live across the country, so they're in Mississauga. And they called to tell me that they couldn't be my executors anymore because of their health issues. And they realized, I know it's kind of reverse, but in that conversation, we realized that neither my brother or I, both of us who have, well, my brother had cancer, I have cancer. He's working. He can't take that time off work because there is so much to do to help. So it's about putting together a plan. What happens if one of the parents pass? So that was the conversation that we had, stemming from them saying, we can't be your executors anymore. What care do they want? Where do they want to live? So if one of them goes, they're going to move to where my brother is, because in theory he'll live longer than me because his cancer is in remission. Whereas mine is, I've outlived my life expectancy. I was supposed to be 2 to 3 years, and I'm nearing 7. So knock on wood.
Good for you. Good for you.
But it's about looking at so this is forcing me to redo my estate planning because I have to change my will if they're not my executors anymore. And a gentleman earlier talked about it takes a village, and it truly does. Had it not been for my network, because I don't have family here. My dad had to fly out when I had my hip replaced to help my boyfriend. I don't live with my boyfriend. And I had my hip replaced because the cancer aided it, and I was too stubborn to wear diapers for a while because who wants to when they're in their 50s and late 40s? And my dad was cleaning up after me, pee on the ground, redoing the bed and the linens. And so as much as this show is about talking about aging parents, in my case it's a little bit reversed.
Yeah.
But the conversations are the same, and the care is the same. I have my still resuscitate for now. If it's not for my network, like I said, so my boyfriend came over, my dad flew out, my neighbors shovel my front of my little duplex. Because I'm not ready to go into care.
So you really need a community. You really need a community, right?
You do. You truly do.
Yeah.
I think as you age, there's the issue where your network starts dying off. And so your family is it. But so many times now, families have moved across provinces, have moved across countries.
Oh, yeah. That's very difficult. Yeah.
So
we go through that in our own family.
Exactly. So now you have to kind of consider who is here to help me. There are resources, as the gentleman, the chair that was speaking earlier said, but there are not enough of them. So
not enough.
Are you going?
Enough. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Are you going private?
Okay.
How long is it going to take to get into hospice? What hospice?
Yeah.
And these are all the questions that you need to kind of think of and have, and they
game
hurt.
plan.
They're really hard. As you heard, I got
look,
choked up.
Natalie, you're a real trooper. You're a real trooper, real survivor, and I wish you all the best. And I thank you so much for your call today. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. I think all of our callers, it takes a village. It takes a village. Let's go to Donna is up next. Hi, Donna.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Hi, Donna. Good to hear from you. Yeah, I hear you just fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wish the best for Natalie too. She's got it rough.
Yeah.
I've been taking care. Well, I was. My mom just passed a year ago today, but 10 years prior to that, she was in the nursing home situation, and she broke her hip once in one, and then of course, we were in quite a few. The last one she was in, I just stayed there. You know that saying, it's good to know your enemy rather than start fresh somewhere else.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I took care of her in there for probably about 4 years. And
Okay.
there's so many things wrong with our nursing home. I was glad, well, I wasn't glad when COVID hit, but, the government, they rallied and said, oh, we're going to fix the nursing homes. And
Right. This will be the
have
wake
more
up
care
call
in them.
for long-term care, right? Yeah.
I know, but nothing happened.
Okay.
I didn't see any improvements in the homes. They don't have enough people in there. I did get Mom eventually the last couple of years moved up into the dementia ward because another nurse advised me that the care is better up there. But I seriously, it was like my full-time work. I'd get there early in the morning and I'd run for a break, after her lunch.
Now, if I could just ask you, were you also working at the same time you were doing all of this, or was that impossible?
No, it wasn't even possible. I was living with my daughter at the time. They knew I was focused strictly on Mom. I was changing her in that, and if I didn't, she would just sit in it. I ended up being the one showering her all the time too, because, some of them, they don't care. They just turn it on, blast it right on them. Mom, she likes to put her hand in it and feel the temperature and make sure it's good.
Sure.
And do it gradual.
Yeah.
So many little things and so much I saw in there. Like,
But it was like you had to be there to be an advocate. I've heard this, not just in a long-term care setting, but even in the acute care hospitals.
Yeah, exactly. I ended up being an advocate for so many in there. I got to know the other residents. I had them coming to Mom's door because they needed something. Blankets, or they didn't have the right clothing. I'd go to the Value Village and I'd pick up a lot of sweaters and extra blankets.
Wow. Nice.
There's just so many. And Blue Cross covers eyeglasses for seniors and different things, like so many things after a time frame. They would break their glasses and they wouldn't have glasses after that. Nobody would bother, checking on those things. And I'm talking about maybe they don't have family that comes and sees them.
Right.
Very often.
You were obviously very dedicated, and you felt you had to be there like a hawk, and you're to be commended for that. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. And you're pointing out, and we'll have to go, but you're pointing out that, and I was curious about this, because there are a lot of pledges made about long-term care will never be the same after the pandemic, and whether that is actually the case. Thank you for your call today. All the best to you. Be right back. More of your calls on taking care of aging parents today on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
On taking care of aging parents. Tracy in Nova Scotia. Tracy, thanks for calling. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Rod.
Yeah, good to hear from you.
So, thank you. And I was honored and blessed to take POAs on for 6 people in my life. And 2 of them were cancer victims. 2 of them were dementia. 1 was Alzheimer's. And I've spent the last 33 years taking care of people. And it's exhausting, and it does take a village. And I was alone and doing this by myself. And when I look back, and 7 of them are executors that I've been an executor for. And so I took care of them throughout their life, and then I ended up taking care of them after their life. So I agree with the previous caller. You have to have that conversation with people. It's really tough. One of the folks wasn't senior. He was my husband who died of brain cancer. And I had that conversation with him, my mom, and my dad. You can't drive anymore. And that is a really difficult conversation to have with people.
Oh, yeah.
But it keeps people on the road safe, and it keeps the loved ones safe. And
sure.
Sitting down and understanding what they want is really critical, and I can't advocate for POAs enough. And if anyone,
and what does that stand for? POA, power of attorney. Power of attorney. Yeah. Okay.
So
of course. Okay.
An
Thank you.
exclusive power of attorney, so that you can help them in a hospital, not just with the banking. And a lot of banks will get you to sign a power of attorney that only specifically deals with the bank. So people have to have an exclusive power of attorney in their life to encourage people that are going to take care of them, that they have the full gamut. And again, having that conversation with the folks. And you know what, Rob? I worked in a career that I absolutely loved. 95 typically people reported to me nationally, and I loved that job. And I had to retire from that to take care of my mom. And so, it's really important that people, I've never been able to talk about this. It's a lot. Aunts and uncles and dementia and Alzheimer's. It's a terrible disease. And thank you very, very much for listening.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you for all the good work that you've done. 1-833-668-2577. This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We've been learning today about some of the challenges people face when they take care of aging parents. We've been talking about what help is available and what more could be done to make it easier for family members to take care of an aging parent, or friends to take care of an aging parent. 1-833-668-2577. Bernie is in St. George, Ontario. Hello, Bernie.
Hi, Rob. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you just fine, Bernie. Thanks. What are your experiences?
Okay, so I've heard a number of people say it takes a village to care for the elderly. That is only true, in my opinion, because we have a birth rate of 1 point something in this country now. And there just aren't enough family members around to help. But what happened in our family, my parents, shockingly, had 12 children.
Wow.
When they became elderly and needed to be cared for, we had 152 grandchildren and great-grandchildren all living within a half a mile of my parents. I know that's not going to be the norm. This is very unusual. But we took care of my parents to the day they died in their own home. We had people there from the family in the house 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 2 years, and cared for them till the day they died. It was a wonderful, wonderful blessing for my parents. I know if you don't have a family the size of ours, you can't do that. But I do believe as a society, we're getting away from the idea of families and the obligation that children have of taking care of their parents. And another part of that is the care that we gave my parents was exceptional, and we were blessed that we could do it with that number of people. But we saved the healthcare system probably a couple of $1 million by doing that as well.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I know if you're an only child, you can't do what we did. But
Right.
as a society, we need to understand a collapsing birth rate has huge consequences.
Yeah, it's an
Through
interesting
history,
point. But, just to highlight, sir, because, there have been all kinds of studies and research done about this. It's still about 8 million Canadians, 7.8 million Canadians is the best guess, who are doing this, taking care of aging parents. It's not like it's not happening. It's happening every day by millions and millions of Canadians.
And it's
But
a
as we've
wonderful
heard
thing.
today, the task is enormous, and for some, overwhelming.
It is, and it wasn't that overwhelming for us because we had an army of people.
Mm-hmm.
But
will you have an army of people to help you?
I think I have 3 children and 6 grandchildren. I hope they'll be able to help take care of me.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, trends in society have consequences that we don't really think about until decades down the road.
Yeah, and this is one of the things. This is one of the reasons of why I wanted to raise this again. I mean, demographics don't lie. We all know what's coming. Right now, it's 1 in 5 is 65 years or older. 10 years from now, it's going to be 1 in 4. How much more difficult will this get for some people?
I know people who work at nursing homes, Rob, and there's a lot of lonely people in there who never get a visitor, and it breaks my heart.
Okay, we'll wrap it up there for hour number 1 of Talkback. Full hour just ahead on the topic, and more of your experiences and advice on taking care of aging parents. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. Our topic today, taking care of aging parents. Asking what some of the challenges people commonly face when they're taking care of aging parents. What help is out there that's available, that's been beneficial, and what more could be done to make it easier for family members, for friends to take care of an aging parent. We have 3 lines available. 1-833-668-2577. To Sean in Kitchener is up next. Hi, Sean.
Hey, how are you doing today?
I'm very good, Sean. Thank you for calling. What would you say?
I'm new to this taking care of elderly parents thing. I've been doing it for the last 7 months with my dad.
Okay.
And one thing I noticed, I haven't been able to find any kind of, it's not easy to find assistance with this. I'm currently on my way driving over an hour to go see my dad to check on him, make sure he's good, make sure he's got something to eat. I do it every day, or at least every other day. I'm also working, and I'm a single dad as well. So it is very tiring, I find, and I just don't find it simple enough, or there isn't enough, I don't know, say advertising or whatever to find the help that we could use. It's I don't know, the government.
And what kind of help could you use? What kind of help could you use?
Some kind of home care, in the house, unless it's the doctors that are giving that, and that only happens after hospital stay. Towards the end of my mom's life, she did have occasional health care coming in, people coming in to check on her, and it was almost more like a babysitting job, where they'd come in and sit with her and talk to her, and maybe make her a lunch or whatever, so that at that time my dad could go out and pay bills or run errands, right?
Okay.
And,
okay.
But for me, driving over an hour either way back and forth to go take care of him every other day, because he's really declined since we lost my mom. I worry about him constantly, because I get a call at 1 o'clock in the morning that he's still trying to go to the bathroom, and I'm not right around the corner, and I'm the only family member doing this.
Okay.
So it's tough. I just wish any services that are out there to help people in these situations were a little more easily accessed. or
Okay.
we were made more aware of these services.
More
right?
aware, aware of home care options and home care services. That would be a big thing for you. Be a big help to you right now.
Yeah, like unless my dad ends up in the hospital on that, I don't know where I can reach out to try and get that kind of a service, right? I don't know. His family
Very
doctor
interesting.
hasn't
Well,
been any
maybe somebody who's listening could point you in the right direction. Let's hope so.
Yeah, like I'll be listening, and that's what I've been listening for. And I love your show. I listen all the time. This is the first time I've called, but this really hit home for me, obviously today. And it's a great conversation, and I think it needs to be brought up more often. There's so many people doing this, and I know I'm not the only one in the position I'm in where I'm the only family member.
Yeah.
We went through this with my grandparents too. So, but yeah, more awareness would be great. That's
more
my
awareness.
Big take on it.
Yeah. More availability of home care. Very good. Very good. We'll let you get back to your travels, and all the best to you, sir, and your father. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Some lines available there. Tony is in Kitchener. Hi, Tony.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
Very good, Tony. Thank you for calling.
Oh, good. Actually, this one hit home with me as well, as your last caller said. I have a 93-year-old mother there's 5 of us, and we all chip in and we help out. We're very fortunate that way. But my mother-in-law, who's 89, and my wife, who has siblings, she has no support at all. But if I can give anybody any kind of piece of advice, because we're going through this right now, get into your doctor and get whatever assessment you need done. Because my wife and I have never seen her this stressed out in the 40 years we've been together. The amount of bureaucracy that is involved in trying to get something as simple as an hour a day for a PSW, it's so challenging and frustrating, because what we found, what happened is we were thinking that she needed assisted living, but in actuality she needed independent supportive care. And in order to get
and what is that?
spot,
What is that? So I'm aware.
Yeah, so basically my mother-in-law, she has a form of dementia. You talk to her, she's fine, she's there. Short-term memory is horrible, so she needs direction. And it's time for lunch, it's time for breakfast, it's time for supper, you need to take a bath. That's all she needs. She's very mobile, she's very active, she's aware of what's going on, but the short-term memory is just not there. And so what we ended up finding was we wasted a lot of time thinking she needed assisted living or some other type of care, or long-term care, and we ended up finding out that's not what she needed. So we wasted like months. And so people are aware, when you get this done, Rob, it's not overnight. Like my wife's been at it since last October, and in an 11th hour miracle, we were able to get some respite care for her here in Cambridge. And I'm telling you, go to your doctor. If I can recommend to anybody, go to your doctor, make them aware of what your parent is going through, or parents are going through, so they can start the process of getting assessed. That is the single most important thing that we wasted so much time, was the assessment portion, because we were completely wrong on the care she needed. And what we ended up finding out, Rob, it's all about checking the boxes. We may think it's a crisis, but to the people that are checking the boxes and looking into the PSWs and stuff, you're not a crisis. So you have to meet a certain criteria. And we didn't know about this because we didn't know how to navigate through this. So what we ended up finding out, and if I could pass it on to anybody else, your doctor is the most important person you need to talk to about this. So he or she can get the ball rolling. And the assessment part is crucial, because what you might think they need, if they're not checking certain boxes, Rob, you don't get to be put on a list of PSW or assisted living or long-term care. So if I can pass it on to anybody, assessment is so important.
Assessment. That's very, very interesting and potentially very time-saving advice. Thank you so much, and all the best to you. Imagine that, more than a year trying to navigate the system. 1-833-668-2577 on taking care of aging parents. It's hour number 2 of Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
On taking care of aging parents, Tracy is in Calgary. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, how are you today?
Very good, Tracy. Yep, good to hear from you. What would you say?
I was just listening to the last two callers who said that they were calling about they didn't know which kind of options are out there for parents aside from your family doctor or setting up with home care or long-term care. And I have just two suggestions.
Okay.
Hello? One of them is, first off, the last your parent assessed or your person assessed through your doctor. That's true. But also you can call directly into home care in your community and ask for an assessment, and they will come out and do an assessment of your parent and help you, direct you into where you can go with that. And the other thing is, I do have a friend in Calgary. I'm not advocating for her. I'm just saying this is what she does. She is on Kijiji, and she talks about...
Okay, I need you to speak right into the phone. We're just having a little tough time hearing you there. I just need you to speak up just a little bit more.
Making lunch for them or taking them for groceries. So she's not providing nursing care, she's providing patient support. And she goes like 2 hours a day or 1 hour a week or whatever. And she is, there's lots of things on Kijiji that are more nursing related, but she is like a support worker just to provide going reading or socialization, that kind of thing. And I just think people aren't aware that that does exist out there and that you just kind of have to look outside the box. Check Facebook, check Kijiji for that kind of support. And she's, reasonable. Sometimes it's $15 an hour. Sometimes it's $25, depending on what's required.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, okay. Kijiji? Really? Online want ads? Oh, I think she's having phone problems there. That's too bad. I never considered that. Maybe somebody else will have information on that. Tom in Guelph, up next in Guelph, Ontario. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Yeah, very good, Tom. Thanks for calling. Well, what are your experiences here?
Well, my mom is actually in Chartwell, which is for dementia and stuff. But before she actually went, I actually went to care.com. You put in the postal code and you can get a list of people's names that are PSWs that can help with your parents. So, I paid the $50 and then they give you a list of all these people and then it'll ask you questions on what you need for. So my mom wanted somebody to talk to and take her to appointments or grocery shopping and stuff. And you can go through the list of people and then you can interview them. And actually, I had a person come and meet my mom. We had her interview. We hired her. And the range is from, say, about $15 all the way up to about $25, $28.
And how has that worked out for you? And how did that work out for you? Yeah,
it worked out really good until we had to put her in the home.
Right.
She was getting worse. So if you go to care.com, put in your postal code, you pay for it. It'll give you a list of a lot of people that, they have their police record check and they have description on what they'll do, what they won't do. And you can pinpoint to what you need for your parents.
And what would you say, just when you did this interview, what kind of questions did you ask? How did you vet this person? Because you're putting them in a great position of trust there.
Yeah, I sent a text message through the website. And then I gave them my phone number. They called me. I talked to them, and I said, well, I would really like for you to meet my mom. So went down to my mom's house, and she came over to my mom's place where, she was comfortable in her own home. And then we would ask, so what do you do? How much are you, wanting? how many hours are you looking for? And, you just ask questions like, would you do house cleaning? Could you take her to a doctor's appointment? Like, you just ask the main questions, and do you have references? And they'll bring references and everything too. So
okay, that's what I was wondering. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Okay, yeah, okay, that's good.
And it even states on the website that there's if they have their police record check, and you can always ask them for a police record check.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you. Care.com. Good, Tom. Be right back with more of your calls, more of your experiences, more of your advice on taking care of aging parents today on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's go to William in Airdrie on taking care of aging parents. Hi, William. Thanks for calling.
Hi, Rob. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good, William. Please share your experiences, please.
Yeah. So, I have quite a bit of experience actually, because I'm a single child of two seniors, and one of my late father just passed away about 3 years ago, and I went through the system. Actually, one thing that I really wanted to talk about was the self-managed care program. I don't know if you ever heard of that, Rob, but basically in some of the areas like outside of the major cities, there is a program that is available to those who are interested in taking it. It's called the self-managed care program. And basically you take a seminar, it's like a 2-day seminar. You go to you have to go into the city for the seminar, or I think it's also available through Skype or something as well. And they just kind of guide you on the process and how to get the funds from the government to be able to apply for that benefit, basically. And it allows you to be able to find a caregiver to take care of your parents while you're working, or let's say you have other obligations, your time is limited. Like, I know for me, because I was working, I had 2 kids and I have my parents living with me. Although my mom, she was already retired, she was able to help a lot too with my father. But that being said, there was also times where she needed that extra support. So it was really a beneficial thing, especially for that self-managed care. And I don't know if many people know about it. And it took me even a while to kind of find it, because I was living in Airdrie, and Airdrie is so close to Calgary. It's like 10 minutes out of the city, except they don't have the same benefits as Calgary does, because it's a bigger city with the home care and stuff. So the home care in Airdrie was only limited to so many hours. But the good thing with the self-managed care, you were given even more time and even more, I could say, what would you say, Mom? more benefits, basically.
Okay.
To be able to kind of manage your schedule, manage the time you want someone at the house. Of course, there's assessment that they have to do based on the needs of the individual. But that being said, if they meet those needs, you're given basically the maximum funding, and you're able to actually have somebody that can take care of your loved ones for sure.
Self-managed care program. Okay. I'm glad you brought that up. It might be beneficial to somebody who's listening right now. Self-managed care program. Thank you. All the best to you in Airdrie today. Let's go to Zach, is in Calgary. Zach. Hi, Zach.
Hi, Rob.
Yeah. Hi, Zach. Yeah. Good to hear from you.
I personally experienced the same thing from a lot of the callers about how it takes a village to help our sick and elderly. I agree. But there are kind of 3 huge historical pillars of Canadian life that we've lost. A caller mentioned the shift away from the family. Things like large families and multi-generational support were normal and part of our culture.
Yeah.
I think the decline of community and religious life, caring for the elderly and honoring your mother and father weren't just nice, but they're obligations and commandments. But the one I find fascinating that a lot of people don't think about is the total collapse of the sisterhood. Before the 1960s, the sisterhood operated like the nuns.
Oh, the nuns. Okay. You lost me there for a sec. Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
like before the 1960s, they operated an extensive network of over 150 institutions, hospitals, orphanages, long-term care for the sick and homeless.
Well, yeah.
They
That was at a
peaked
time
about
when the church
40
was very influential and the society was much less secular than it is now. Do we want to turn do we want to turn the clock back now and hand, hospitals back over to the control of something like the Roman Catholic Church, for example, or the education system or what have you? I understand your point. You're coming at it from a, kind of a Christian biblical perspective. I appreciate that. We're more, though, into more practical advice today and, the challenges that people are facing, what help is out there, and what more could be done to help family members. Not that I don't appreciate your perspective, but thank you for your call.
Something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Now, I never used to think about this stuff, taking care of aging parents. For the longest time, I was just kind of blissfully unaware, maybe wishful thinking. Then all of a sudden, before you know it, you're getting up there in years, and your parents have aged before your eyes, and yet you start to think about this stuff, and you worry about this stuff, and you wonder how you're going to deal with this stuff. For me, I haven't had to make any big decisions. And my parents have told me most of the big decisions have been made already, but it doesn't stop you from thinking about it. And I find now that I'm in my mid-50s, the people I know, we have conversations about this all the time, parents, and what you have to do and what you're supposed to do and how are you supposed to do it and what help is out there and all of these things. And this is a daily life for millions and millions and millions of Canadians, 8 million Canadians, best guess, part of their everyday routine. Taking care of mom, taking care of dad, maybe taking care of both. We've heard that today. And I've heard this term, and this has also come up today, the sandwich generation. That's 2 million people in Canada. Not only are they taking care of their parents and everything that's involved with that, they also have children living at home. And part of that is because children are living at home longer than they used to. Sandwich caregivers, they're called, taking care of both parents and children. Where do they ever find the time? The government has actually done research on this. It's very stressful, huge impact on the caregiver's health and well-being. It can be a hit to the pocketbook. It can be hard on a household budget, and it can take a toll. As our very first caller, Gary in Halifax, said today, it can take a toll on family relationships, all of this. 1-833-668-2577, an important discussion we're having today. Mike is in Waterloo. Hi, Mike.
Hey, how are you doing, Rob?
Very good, Mike. Good to hear from you.
Conversation's been really good. They hit a lot of the key points of honest advice. What I didn't hear is the importance of wills and power of attorney. That's something I learned a lot about, especially the assumptions we have about wills and powers of attorney. The power of attorney, and at least in Ontario, we have two kinds: the one for care, personal care and health, and the other one's finances. And often it's the same person that becomes that, but sometimes one sibling is assigned one, the other sibling's assigned the other. So what people don't realize is those powers of attorney are just pieces of paper until they're turned on, like a light switch. And either a doctor has to turn it on or a lawyer has to turn it on. Otherwise, you are not an acting power of attorney. And that was interesting. I had to take my dad to the family lawyer, and he put me on his full acting power of attorney so I could help with the finances and help consolidate things and help him not make mistakes. But it had to be turned on. I didn't know that. So that was really cool. And then once a person passes away, power of attorney is useless. It's gone. It's dead, just like the deceased, unfortunately. And the executor takes over, and it could be somebody totally different. And
yes,
again, if you have assigned or an executor for somebody, find out ahead of time what their wishes really are. Sometimes you have to update the will. But those are some of the things I learned that were the little tiny details that could throw you off. Because I've heard kids say, because I work in a long-term care home as well, part-time. I've heard kids of a senior say, well, I'm power of attorney. I said, well, you might be, but you're not an acting power of attorney. What? Right? Like, it's just very interesting. Those little tiny details. That's all. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Yeah. Thank you. Very, very good advice there. Thank you so much for your call. Mike in Waterloo. Let's go to Anita, I believe, is up next in Calgary. Hi, Anita.
Hi, Rob.
Hi there.
Can you hear me, Rob?
Yeah, I hear you just fine.
Okay. Rob, I just wanted to let people know that when you have an elderly mother, father, or relative that you need to take care of, the first thing you do as soon as they're declining is, and the last caller said it right on the nail, is that you have to go straight to your doctor. The doctor has to do that assessment. The resources and the accessibility, you can actually have your doctor initiate care through the hospital, and they will then send out a nurse to do that assessment. The resources and to find that, and just so that you understand, is that I have been a nurse for 36 years. Part of that in my nursing, I have done home care. It's frustrating for a lot of families is that they didn't know where to look, and it was almost like a hidden secret. So I would just people to go ahead and initiate with their doctor, and then ask home care to give them all the resources, whether it's power attorney, where to go and get any type of help that they need. They have it all. They just have to give it up to people so they know where to go.
Okay. So when you say it's a hidden secret, are you saying it's the doctor that can kind of unlock that hidden secret? Is that what you're saying?
It's actually home care. So
home care. Okay.
Yeah, through Alberta Healthcare Services, they have all those resources and information. And it's for whatever reason, which I never did understand, is why that it wasn't readily accessible for people to get that information. Because, like the one guy said, he had no idea where to begin. And the frustrating part is that it should be readily available for people to access, to know that. And their physicians should know how to do that. So they would initiate the assessment, the home care comes in, and they have all the answers that you need. So you need to probe them, and they'll give you everything from power attorney to do not resuscitate, the green folder of what to do and their wishes. All of that is right there.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for your call today. Greatly appreciate the advice. We'll be right back with more of your calls on taking care of aging parents on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
On taking care of aging parents, our topic for today on Talkback. Let's go to Penny up next. Hi, Penny. You're on the air.
Hi,
Penny.
I'm one of the aging parents.
Okay.
I thought I'd better have my say. I looked after my mom back in the day, like everybody else. I know the struggle. I'm concerned about the struggle for my family because it is overwhelming. And mostly my husband, who's been in hospital now for 6 months, and I'm hoping he'll be out soon. But mostly we get along all right, except in the middle of the night. Now, home care is a wonderful thing, but if we have a couple of accidents in the middle of the night or when home care isn't around, that's when things get really messy. You know, that's when I need help. That's when I can't phone anybody at 2 a.m. and say, please come. This is my second time being awake tonight for something I need help cleaning up or whatever. And I don't know how we can fix that part of it. I don't know how families can survive part of that without having parents living in their home, and that's too stressful too. So I don't have any solutions, Rob. I just empathize with especially elderly couples where one or the other of you is deemed well enough to look after the other one. That's really a problem.
Okay. How would you describe your ability to access care?
I think we've managed to access most things pretty well. There are some very silly rules that apply to some of the home care things. I'll give you an example of one. My husband, as I said, has been in hospital for 6 months. He is going through some rehab now. He's not allowed to have someone in to cut his hair in hospital. In 6 months, he couldn't have anybody in to cut his hair. It's against the rules. Yeah.
Against the rules.
So,
isn't that weird?
Yeah.
You've got a very shaggy husband, I guess, now.
I have. That's right, indeed. Anyway, but I think there's care out there, but as I'm saying, and it's mostly good, but what happens to us in the middle of the night or in a crisis? Those are the things. You can phone EMS if it's because of sickness, but if you suddenly need help with something in the middle of the night, you can't phone EMS. And if there was some way they could put something into place to help with those kind of things, it would be huge. So thanks for listening to me.
Well, thank you for calling. Yeah, all the best to you and your shaggy husband. And let's hope he gets out of the hospital soon. Let's go to Debbie, is in Kitchener, Ontario. Hello, Debbie.
Hi, how are you doing?
Very good, Debbie. Thanks for calling. What would you say here?
A couple of things. Number one, I took care of my parents. I'm one of 8 kids, and like the other caller said, depends where they live. Most of my siblings lived hours away, so most of the care fell to me. Also, my parents were both veterans, and at the time when we were looking for housing or to try to get them in, there was such a backlog. Ontario at that time was short of over 25,000 beds. So it took 2.5 years to get my mom in, and it wasn't until a nurse came, and she was incontinent during that time and had Alzheimer's. And thank goodness my one sister came from 4 hours away, and she would stay for a couple of months at a time. And we would spell each other off. She would bring her on the weekends to my place. And then when she would go back, then it fell to me. So I lived 3/4 of an hour away. So I would have to drive in to do my mom's toileting and either stay for the day or go back home and then come back in later on. And it wasn't until finally we were able to get a home care person to come, and because once you're on the list, they wait until something happens. They don't, it takes an incident. And so they came and they saw that my parents' house was overcome with mice, and there were mice running around when she was in the kitchen assessing the situation. And so my mom got in the next week, which was great. But then the other thing is, sorry, now I'm losing my train of thought. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say is I have absolutely no regrets whatsoever. I would give anything to have another day with any of them. It's not that I loved the job. It did take a lot of sacrifices. I concur with everybody, all of the things. It's obvious that they've walked the walk and know what they're talking about. And I know that now there's there's more of a push even within my own family to encourage MAID, and I'm 100% against using that as a way of dealing with our elderly. I think that's a cop-out in society.
Okay, fair enough. That's a conversation for another day. I don't want to start going down that road again because I could do a whole show on that. But I want to... Oh, we're running out of time here. Very quickly, okay? You mentioned needing downtime. You would swap out with your sister when you had the opportunity. How important was that for you, that downtime, that respite?
For both of us, really. The other important thing I do want to mention is that when it comes to government, there is an allowance within your income tax. If you live with the person that you're taking care of, you're allowed to have a deduction on your income tax. But if you don't live with them, you can't deduct. There's no caregiver deduction. And I think that is a great disservice that the government is doing. We're the people who take care of our parents and other family members or whatever, like cancer ones, or
right. Okay. I didn't know that. Okay, that's interesting to know. Very, very good for pointing that out. Thank you for your call. Be right back with some closing thoughts. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
On taking care of aging parents. Greg is in Calgary. Hi, Greg.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I'd like to share a couple perspectives. Healthcare and elder care aren't easy. You're welcome. And I think part of the problem is we expect government to fix everything. We expect professional staff to take care of everything. And so much of the solution set lies in just people in our communities taking care of one another. And it doesn't get much tougher than that. And I think people, if they can open up their minds to the possibility of the good things that can happen when you have a senior either in your home or in your neighborhood, it's an absolute win-win when you take people with decades more life experience than you might have and bring them into your home or into your neighborhood. And the opportunities that they have to serve you as they're serving them are remarkable.
Yeah, but we can't underestimate the challenges that come with that as well, because there are many, right? It can be complex, can be difficult, can be stressful.
100%. But to look to any system to solve any of our problems, or more importantly, many of us look to the system to solve all of our problems. And I would just love to wash my hands of my parents and have someone else do the work. So there's a balance somewhere in between those extremes. And leveraging the system, supporting the system, but just like people open their minds to the possibilities. We had my wife's father living with us in a father-in-law suite in our home for the last 5 years of his life, including the last year with cancer, up until 2 days before he died in our home. And it was the best decision I've ever made. He came in not wanting to be a burden. The things he taught us, we used to get national, local, provincial news rundowns in 2 minutes after we got home. We get a free meal twice a week if you happen to be making short ribs, his favorite meal.
Okay.
And, he was cleaning out leaves in my eaves trough at 85 years old. So it's amazing if you just open up your mind to the possibility of the good that can happen rather than us all focusing on what isn't working and what's broken. Let's build on what is.
Okay. Thank you.
Cheers.
Nothing more I could add there. Thank you so much, Greg. That's such a great call. And obviously he's provided many memories for you. Thank you for all of your calls. Very, very thoughtful conversation today. We'll be back tomorrow. It'll be the Friday Free for All Talkback. So some lighter fare tomorrow for sure. And it's always an adventure because we don't necessarily come up with topics on Friday. We'd rather hear from you, and you can start the conversation yourself. Until then, the latest breaking news is coming up next. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.